The fluorescent lights of St. Michael's Hospital hummed their familiar song at 11:42 on a Tuesday night in February. Catherine Morrison had heard that sound for 37 years. 37 years of squeaking shoes on linoleum that had been replaced 3 times in her career. 37 years of watching the clock hands crawl toward midnight while holding the hands of people who needed her more than sleep. Tonight, those hands felt heavier than usual. Kit, everyone called her Kit, had called her Kit since boot camp in 1979, moved through the trauma ward with the quiet efficiency of someone who had done this 10,000 times before. Check the IV drips, adjust the monitors, make sure the night shift had what they needed. Small acts, routine acts, the kind of work that became invisible after 4 decades. She was 65 years old. Her back ached in 3 places. Her hands, scarred from 1,000 needle sticks and chemical burns, trembled slightly when she held them still. Reading glasses hung on a chain around her neck because her eyes weren't what they used to be. But her mind was sharp, her instincts sharper. The night shift nurses had thrown her a party earlier, a grocery store cake with "Happy Retirement, Kit" written in blue frosting. A card signed by everyone in the trauma unit. Kind words, genuine smiles. The kind of send-off that makes you realize you're about to step off the edge of the world into nothing. Retirement. The word tasted bitter in her mouth. Kit had spent 6 years in the Navy as a hospital corpsman. Not in combat zones, and women weren't allowed in combat in those days, but in naval hospitals in Germany and Japan, patching up Marines and sailors who came back broken from places she wasn't allowed to go. She learned to stop bleeding, to calm panic, to look a 19-year-old boy in the eyes and tell him he was going to be okay even when she knew he wasn't. After her discharge in 1985, she went to nursing school, got her RN, started at St. Michael's in 1988, married Patrick Morrison, a Marine Corps sergeant who understood what it meant to serve without question. They had 1 daughter, Abigail. Patrick died in 2022 after a 2-year battle with cancer. Kit held his hand at the end just like she'd held the hands of countless patients. She was good at holding hands. Now the hospital was telling her it was time to let go. Kit pulled off her scrubs in the women's locker room. The space smelled like antiseptic and old coffee. She folded the blue fabric carefully, placed it in her bag. Civilian clothes felt strange. A sweater, jeans, like putting on someone else's skin. Her locker was almost empty. The photos of Abigail at various ages, the small cactus that somehow survived, despite her terrible care. The coffee mug that said, "Nurses saving your ass, not kissing it," all packed away in a cardboard box. 37 years reduced to things that fit in a box. She was closing the locker door when the alarm sounded. Not the soft chime of a regular call button. The screaming wail of a code blue. Cardiac arrest. All hands, life or death in the next 4 minutes. Kit's body moved before her mind caught up. Muscle memory. Training that went deeper than thought. She was through the locker room door and running down the hallway before she remembered she wasn't on duty anymore. Before she remembered she was retired. The trauma bay was chaos. A young man, maybe 19, maybe 20, lay on the gurney. His shirt had been cut away. Multiple stab wounds across his chest and abdomen. Blood everywhere. Too much blood. The kind of blood that meant minutes, not hours. Dr. Jeremy Walsh, a second-year resident, barely 30 years old, stood at the head of the bed with his hands shaking. 2 nurses, both new, both young, fumbled with equipment they should have known by heart. "Where's the someone get me a central line kit?" Jeremy's voice cracked on the last word. The patient's monitor screamed. Blood pressure 60/40 and dropping. Heart rate 140 irregular. Oxygen saturation 82%. Kit saw it all in the space between heartbeats. Saw the hesitation in Jeremy's eyes. Saw the nurse drop a blood bag because her hands were shaking. Saw the other nurse searching desperately through cabinets for equipment that was 3 feet to her left. She saw one dying because the people trying to save him had forgotten how. Kit walked into the trauma bay. Not running, not shouting. Just walking with the kind of calm that comes from doing the impossible. So many times it becomes routine. "Step back," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, didn't need to be. It carried the weight of 6 years in the Navy and 37 years in this hospital. The weight of authority earned, not given. Jeremy looked at her. Confusion, relief, fear. "Kit, you're not—" "Step back, Dr. Walsh," firmer this time. The voice she'd used on young corpsmen who froze during emergencies. The voice that saved lives. He stepped back. Kit moved to the gurney. Her hands went to work automatically. Found the femoral artery. Applied pressure. Not frantic. Controlled. Counting in her head. Watching the monitors. You, she said, pointing to the nearest nurse without looking up. 2 units O negative. Now you, pointing to the other pressure bag on the second unit. Set it to 300. Move. They moved. Kit's hands worked. Pressure here. Check the wounds. 3 deep penetrations. 1 nicked the subclavian artery, possibly a hemothorax. She leaned close to the patient's chest. Listened. Breath sounds absent on the right side. Tension pneumothorax. I need a 14-gauge angiocath, Kit said. Still calm, still controlled, like ordering coffee. We should wait for, Jeremy started. We don't have time to wait. Kit looked at him. Really looked at him. Let him see 37 years of experience looking back. This boy has a collapsed lung, and you're standing there wondering if you should do something about it. Give me the needle. Jeremy handed it over. Kit found the spot by feel. Second intercostal space mid-clavicular line. The textbook said to count ribs mark with a pen double check. The textbook assumed you had time. This boy didn't have time. She inserted the needle. Quick, precise, no hesitation. The hiss of escaping air was immediate. The monitor changed its song. Blood pressure rising, oxygen climbing, heart rate stabilizing. The boy gasped. A real breath. The first one in 2 minutes. Kit stepped back, stripped off the gloves she'd grabbed from the wall dispenser, walked to the sink, washed her hands. The water ran red, then pink, then clear. Behind her, Jeremy and the nurses worked frantically. IV lines, medications, the organized chaos of a code that was no longer quite so urgent. Kit dried her hands, looked at the clock. 11:58. 2 minutes until midnight. 2 minutes until she was officially retired. She walked toward the door. Wait, Jeremy's voice. Kit, wait, how did you? Kit turned. The young doctor looked at her like she'd performed magic, like she'd done something impossible. I did my job, Dr. Walsh, she said quietly. That's all. Now finish yours. She walked out. The hallway was empty. The hospital at night always felt like a different place. Quieter, darker. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in harsh white and deep shadow. Kit made it to the elevator before the shaking started. Her hands, then her arms, then her whole body. Not fear, not adrenaline, something else. The weight of understanding that she'd just done that for the last time. Saved a life in those final 2 minutes of a 37-year career. The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside, pressed the button for the ground floor. The doors closed and Catherine Morrison was alone. Everett Walsh found her in the parking lot 20 minutes later. Everett was 28, a male nurse who'd started at St. Michael's 3 years ago. Kit had trained him, taught him the difference between doing something fast and doing something right. He was good. Would be great if he didn't let the hospital grind him down. Kit, he jogged across the parking lot, his breath fogging in the February cold. Kit waited. She was loading the last box into her trunk. Photos, a potted plant someone had given her, a framed certificate from the Navy that she'd kept in her locker for 37 years. Hey, Everett, she managed to smile. It felt like lifting weights. That was incredible back there. He was breathless, excited. Jeremy said you just walked in and you knew exactly what to do. He said the kid would have died if you hadn't. Jeremy would have figured it out, Kit said, closing the trunk. He's a good doctor. He just panicked. Happens to everyone. Can you teach me? The words tumbled out fast. I mean, I know you're retiring, but maybe you could, I don't know, mentor me or something, because what you did back there, that's what I want to be able to do. Kit looked at this young man, saw herself 40 years ago, eager, hungry, believing that competence and dedication were enough. You don't need me, she said gently. You're already good at this, Everett. You'll be great. Just remember, the patients aren't puzzles to solve. They're people, scared people. Be competent, but be kind. That's the secret. Everett nodded slowly. Will you come back? Maybe, Kit lied. She wouldn't come back. Coming back would make it real, would make her face the fact that she was no longer necessary, that the hospital would keep running without her, that life would go on. Everett hugged her, quick and awkward. Thank you, Kit, for everything. Then he was gone, jogging back to the hospital because his shift wasn't over and people needed him. Kit stood alone in the parking lot. It was 3 in the morning. The lot was nearly empty. Just scattered cars under yellow sodium lights that turned everything the color of old bones. Her RAV4 sat in the spot where she'd parked it 10,000 times. She knew every crack in the pavement, every shadow. She fumbled in her purse for her keys. Her hands were still shaking. Retirement. The word kept circling her mind like a vulture. What did retired mean? What did Catherine Morrison do when she wasn't Nurse Morrison? Who was she without the title, the purpose, the need? Patrick had asked her that once, near the end when the cancer had taken everything but his mind. What will you do, Kit, when you retire? Rest, she'd told him. I'll rest. He'd smiled, that sad smile that meant he knew she was lying and loved her anyway. You don't know how to rest, Catherine. You know how to serve. It's who you are. He'd been right. Kit opened the trunk again, not to add anything, just to look. The boxes, the photos, the pieces of a life that suddenly felt very small. A brown envelope slipped out from between two frames. Old, yellowed. She'd forgotten it was there. Her hands moved automatically. Opened it. Inside, a single letter. Handwritten. The ink faded but still legible. The return address made her stomach clench. Silas Hartwell. Sent in October 2013. She knew that name. God, she knew that name. Kit's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the bumper of her car, the letter trembling in her hands. Silas Hartwell, father of Corporal Nathaniel Hartwell, United States Marine Corps. Nate, the boy with the bright smile and the night terrors. The boy who'd been 21 years old and broken when they'd brought him to St. Michael's in the summer of 2011. Nate had been in Afghanistan. Second deployment. His Humvee hit an IED. He survived. His best friend didn't. For 3 months, Nate couldn't close his eyes without seeing his friend's face. Couldn't sleep without screaming. The nightmares were so bad, they had to restrain him. Kit had volunteered to sit with him. Night after night after night, 73 consecutive nights, she'd pull a chair into his room during her breaks after her shift before her shift. She'd sit in the darkness and talk softly about nothing important. Weather, baseball, her daughter Abigail. Anything to give Nate's mind something to hold on to besides the memories. Some nights she'd sing, Amazing Grace. It was the only hymn she knew all the words to. Her voice wasn't good, but Nate said it helped. Said it reminded him of his mother who died when he was 12. After 6 months, Nate got better. Not healed, you don't heal from that, but better. Functional. He went home to his father in Worcester. Kit got a card at Christmas. A simple thank you. She tucked it away and moved on to the next patient. Then in March of 2012, she'd seen the news. A Marine Corps operation in Helmand Province. 5 casualties. She'd seen the names scroll across the bottom of the screen. Corporal Nathaniel Hartwell, 21 years old, killed in action. Kit had walked into the hospital bathroom and cried for 20 minutes. Then she'd dried her eyes, fixed her makeup, and gone back to work. Because that's what you did. You mourned, and then you kept going. She'd never heard from Silas after that. Assumed he'd blamed her. Maybe hated her. She'd made Nate believe life was worth living, and then he'd gone back and died for it. Now, 12 years later, she held his letter in shaking hands. Kit opened it. The paper cracked along old fold lines. It was, Morrison, I am writing this letter because I need you to know what you did to my family. My son came home from Afghanistan broken. You helped put him back together. You gave him hope. You made him believe that life could be normal again. And then you let him go back. He re-enlisted. Did you know that 6 months after coming home, he signed up for another tour, said he had unfinished business, said a good woman had taught him that running from fear wasn't the same as being safe. He died in Helmand Province on March 14, 2012. He was 21 years old. He had his whole life ahead of him. You gave him that hope. You made him think he could survive anything. You were wrong. I will never forgive you for giving my son the courage to go back and die. Silas Hartwell. Kit read it twice, then a third time. The words didn't change, the anger didn't fade, the accusation stayed sharp. She folded the letter carefully, put it back in the envelope. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. They were numb. Had she done that? Had she encouraged Nate to be brave when she should have encouraged him to be safe? Had she sent a boy to his death with her kindness? The questions spiraled. No answers. Just the cold February air and an empty parking lot and a letter that felt like a conviction. Kit stood up, closed the trunk, walked to the driver's side door. She needed air, needed to think, needed to footsteps. Not the casual shuffle of someone heading to their car. Something different, precise, multiple sets, moving in formation. Kit turned. 4 figures emerged from the shadows at the edge of the parking lot. They moved with the synchronized precision of military training. As they came into the light, Kit saw the uniforms. Navy dress whites, formal, ceremonial, the kind of uniform you wore to funerals or to deliver important news. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Had something happened to Abigail? But no, Abigail was Air Force Reserve, not Navy. And she'd texted just 3 hours ago. The four men stopped 10 feet away, all of them tall, all of them fit, all of them wearing the unmistakable trident pin of Navy SEALs. The oldest of them, maybe 48, with gray at his temples and eyes that had seen too much, stepped forward. He came to attention. His posture was parade ground perfect. Then slowly and with great deliberation, he saluted. The other three followed. Four hands raised in unison. Four men standing at attention in an empty parking lot at 3:15 in the morning, saluting a 65-year-old nurse who'd just retired. Kit stood frozen. The bag on her shoulder slipped to the ground. She couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't process what she was seeing. The lead SEAL held the salute for 5 seconds. Then he dropped his hand and spoke. "Ma'am," his voice was deep, textured with emotion held barely in check. "Are you Catherine Morrison?" Yes," her voice came out hoarse. "I'm Kit Morrison. Is something wrong?" "No, ma'am, nothing's wrong." He paused. "My name is Commander Holden Brennan, United States Navy SEALs. These are Chief Petty Officers Wade Sutton, Garrett Lynch, and Deacon Rivers." The three men nodded but didn't speak. Holden reached into his dress white jacket, pulled out something small, held it with both hands like it was made of glass. It was a photograph. Old. The edges worn from being carried and looked at many times. He stepped forward, extended it toward her. "Ma'am, do you remember this man?" Kit took the photo with trembling fingers. The face that looked back at her was young, 21 at most, bright eyes, a confident smile that didn't quite hide the ghosts behind it. He wore Marine Corps dress blues. The photo had been taken at some formal event. A ball, maybe? Or a promotion ceremony. Kit's breath caught in her throat. "Nate," she whispered. "Nathaniel Hartwell." "Yes, ma'am." Holden's voice was gentle now, careful. "Nate Hartwell, do you remember him?" Kit looked up. Tears blurred her vision. "Of course I remember him. I took care of him after Afghanistan. After the IED, he had PTSD, terrible nightmares. I sat with him for—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "I remember him." The four SEALs exchanged glances. Something passed between them, some shared knowledge. "Ma'am," Holden said, "we need to tell you about Nate, about the night he died, and about what he wanted you to know." Kit shook her head. Confusion. Fear. The letter from Silas burned in her mind. "I don't understand. Why are you here? Did his father send you? Because I already know. I already know he blamed me for—" "No, ma'am." Holden's voice was firm. "Silas Hartwell didn't send us. Nate did." Silence. The parking lot, the cold, the yellow lights. Four SEALs in dress whites standing at attention, and Kit Morrison, 65 years old, holding a photo of a boy she'd tried to save 12 years ago. "Ma'am," Holden continued, "Nate Hartwell was my brother in arms. We served together in the same unit. I was with him the night he died in Helmand Province." Kit's legs felt weak. She leaned against her car for support. "Before his last deployment," Holden said, "Nate wrote letters, instructions really, in case he didn't come home. One of those letters was about you. He made me promise that when you retired, whenever that was, we would find you, and we would tell you what he wanted you to know." "What?" Kit's voice broke. "What did he want me to know?" Holden looked at the other three men. They nodded. Some decision made without words. "Ma'am, could we talk somewhere more private? What we need to tell you, it's going to take some time. And there are things Nate left for you, things you need to see." Kit looked at these four men. Navy SEALs, elite warriors, standing in a parking lot at 3 in the morning asking permission to talk to an old nurse about a dead Marine. She should have said no. Should have gotten in her car and driven away. Should have protected herself from whatever this was. But she thought of Nate's smile in the photograph. The boy who'd been so broken and so brave. The boy she'd sung to in the darkness. "Yes," she said. "Yes, we can talk." Holden nodded. "Thank you, ma'am, but first," he paused. "There's something else you need to know. Something that happened tonight, something that makes this meeting more urgent than we planned." Kit frowned. "What happened tonight?" "The patient you saved," Holden said. "The young man in the trauma bay. His name is Lucas Brennan. He's my nephew, and someone just tried to kill him in his hospital room 30 minutes ago." The world tilted. Kit grabbed the car door to steady herself. "What Lucas is someone tried to—" "He's alive," Holden said quickly. "Security stopped them. But ma'am, this isn't over. My nephew is a federal witness. He's testifying against some very dangerous people. They want him dead before he can testify. And right now he's asking for you." "For me, why would he—" "Because you saved his life," Holden said simply. And because he's scared. And because Nate's letters told me that when someone is scared and needs help, there's only one person I should trust. The woman who stayed awake 73 nights to help a broken Marine remember how to sleep. Kit stared at him. The absurdity, the impossibility. She'd retired 4 hours ago. She was supposed to go home, rest, figure out what came next. Instead, she was standing in a parking lot with 4 Navy SEALs who just told her that a boy she'd saved was in danger and that a ghost from 12 years ago had sent them to find her. I don't understand, Kit said. I'm retired. I can't. Ma'am, Holden said, and his voice carried the weight of command now. We're not asking you to fight. We're asking you to do what you've always done. Take care of someone who needs you. Just one more time. Kit closed her eyes, saw Patrick's face, heard his voice. You don't know how to rest, Catherine. You know how to serve. She opened her eyes, looked at Holden Brennan, at the 3 other SEALs, at the photograph of Nate Hartwell still clutched in her hand. Tell me everything, she said. Commander Holden Brennan smiled. It was a warrior's smile, grateful and grim. Yes, ma'am, he said, but not here. Come with us. There's someone who wants to meet you, someone who's been waiting 12 years to say thank you. They drove in silence through the empty streets of Boston. Kit sat in the back of a black SUV with Holden beside her. The other 3 SEALs followed in a second vehicle. No lights, no sirens, just 2 dark shapes moving through a city that was still asleep. Kit watched the familiar streets pass by. Beacon Hill, the Common, places she'd driven past 10,000 times on her way to and from the hospital. Now they felt foreign, like she was seeing them for the first time, or perhaps the last time. Her phone buzzed, a text from Abigail in Seattle. Mom, did you make it home okay? Call me when you wake up. Love you. Kit typed back with shaking thumbs, still wrapping things up. We'll call tomorrow. Love you too. She hated lying to her daughter. But what was she supposed to say? I'm in a car with Navy SEALs heading to some unknown location because a dead Marine left me a letter and your cousin is in danger. Abigail would think she'd lost her mind. Maybe she had. Where are we going? Kit asked. Safe house in Quincy, Holden said. 20 minutes. We moved Lucas there an hour ago. Only 5 people know the location. And you trust all 5? Holden's jaw tightened. I trust 4 of them completely. The 5th I'm working on. Kit understood what he wasn't saying. Someone had leaked Lucas's location at the hospital. Someone on the inside. Someone who knew which room, which floor, which shift would be vulnerable. Tell me about Lucas, she said. What did he witness? Holden looked at her, measuring, deciding how much to share. Lucas is 21, college student at Northeastern, computer science major. Last September, he was working part-time as a data entry clerk for a security company. Legitimate business, or so he thought. He noticed some irregularities in the files, coded transactions, money moving in patterns that didn't make sense. Money laundering, Kit said. Worse. The security company was a front for an organized crime network, East Coast operation, drugs, human trafficking, protection rackets. Lucas stumbled onto their entire digital infrastructure, names, dates, amounts, everything. Kit's hands were cold. She tucked them under her arms. And he went to the police. FBI, Holden corrected. 3 months ago. He's been in protective custody ever since. Trial starts in 6 days. His testimony will put away 19 people, including some very connected people who don't want that to happen. The SUV turned onto a side street. Warehouses, industrial buildings shuttered for the night. The kind of neighborhood that looked different in daylight but felt predatory in the dark. That's why they came for him tonight, Kit said. Last chance before trial. Yes, ma'am. Holden's voice was tight. We had security. 2 marshals outside his room, but someone got past them. We found 1 marshal unconscious. The other one, he let them through. Paid off, Bao. We're investigating, but yes, that's what we think. Holden's fist clenched on his knee. Lucas is my sister's boy. My responsibility. I promised her I'd keep him safe. Then someone walked right into his hospital room with a knife and... He stopped, took a breath. You saved him, ma'am. The doctor said another 2 minutes and he would have bled out. Kit remembered the boy on the gurney. Young, scared, blood everywhere. She hadn't known his name then. Hadn't known he was connected to any of this. She'd just seen someone dying and moved to stop it. The way she always did. Who stabbed him, she asked. We don't know yet. Happened in the parking garage at his apartment building yesterday evening. Lucas was taking out trash. Someone came from behind. 3 stab wounds before Lucas got away. He drove himself to St. Michael's. Barely made it. Brave kid. Stupid kid, Holden said, but there was affection in his voice. Should have called 911, but he was scared they'd trace the call. Paranoid. Can't blame him after everything. The SUV pulled into an alley between two brick warehouses. The second vehicle followed. Holden spoke into a radio. Echo 1 approaching. Status? A voice crackled back. Clear, north entrance. They parked. Holden opened Kit's door. The February wind cut through her sweater like a blade. She should have worn a coat. Should have done a lot of things differently tonight. The safe house wasn't a house at all. It was the second floor of an old warehouse that had been converted into office space years ago and then abandoned when the economy shifted. The windows were blacked out. A single security camera watched the entrance. Inside the space was bare concrete and exposed pipes. Temporary lighting on stands. Medical equipment that looked military grade. A bed in the center surrounded by monitors. And in that bed, a young man with dark hair and frightened eyes. Lucas Brennan looked like he was 12 years old. 21, Holden had said, but fear made him younger. Pale skin, bandages across his chest visible above the hospital gown, an IV line running to his left arm. His right hand gripped the bed rail like it was the only solid thing in the world. When he saw Kit, his eyes went wide with recognition and something else. Relief, maybe, or hope. You, he whispered. You're the nurse, the one who, easy, Kit said, moving to his bedside automatically. Her hands checked his IV, glanced at the monitors. Blood pressure stable, heart rate elevated but not dangerous. Good color despite the blood loss. How are you feeling? Like someone tried to kill me? Lucas's voice shook, twice. Kit pulled up a chair, sat down, looked him directly in the eyes with the kind of steady gaze that said, I'm here and I'm not leaving. Tell me what hurts. Physical pain, not emotional. We'll get to emotional later. Lucas blinked, surprised by the directness. My chest, where the knives went in, burns when I breathe deep. That's normal. You've got 3 puncture wounds, all muscle deep. One nicked your subclavian artery, which is why you bled so much. But we got it under control. The tissue will heal. You'll be okay. How long? 6 weeks for the tissue to fully repair. Longer for the scars to fade. But you'll be functional in 2 weeks. Maybe less if you follow instructions. Lucas stared at her, really looked at her, searching for something. How do you know? How can you be sure? Kit took his hand, the same way she'd taken Patrick's hand, the same way she'd taken Nate's hand 12 years ago. The simple human contact that said you're not alone in this. Because I've been doing this for 37 years, Lucas. I know the difference between someone who's going to make it and someone who isn't. You're going to make it. Something in his face softened. The white knuckle grip on the bed rail loosened just slightly. My uncle said you're retired. As of midnight tonight, yes. But you're here. Yes. Why? Kit glanced at Holden, who stood in the shadows watching this exchange with an expression she couldn't quite read. Then back at Lucas. Because your uncle asked me to be. And because when someone needs help, I don't know how to say no. Lucas's eyes filled with tears. He blinked them back hard, trying to maintain some dignity. I'm scared. I'm really scared. They found me at my apartment. They found me at the hospital. They're going to find me here too, aren't they? Maybe, Kit said honestly, because lying to scared people never helped. But tonight, right now, you're safe. And I'm going to make sure you stay that way. You're a nurse, not a bodyguard. Kit smiled. It was a small smile, but genuine. Lucas, I was a Navy corpsman before I was a nurse. I know how to keep people alive in situations a lot worse than this. Trust me. Lucas studied her face. Whatever he saw there seemed to satisfy him. His breathing evened out. His shoulders dropped half an inch. Within minutes, exhaustion took over. His eyes closed. His hand went slack in Kit's grip. She held on for another minute, then gently laid his hand on the bed and stood up. Holden was waiting by the door. Thank you. He needs rest and antibiotics, strong ones. I assume you have those. Military-grade medical supplies, whatever you need, we have it. Kit nodded. Then I'll stay with him tonight. Monitor for fever, watch for infection. Make sure those wounds don't reopen. Ma'am, you don't have to. I know I don't have to, Kit said quietly. I want to. But Holden, you said Nate left me something. You said there were things I needed to see. Holden's expression changed, became heavier, like he was carrying something that weighed more than it should. Yes, ma'am, in the other room, whenever you're steady. Kit glanced back at Lucas, sleeping now, breathing steady, the monitors showing numbers that meant life, not death. Give me 5 minutes. She checked his vitals one more time. adjusted his IV drip slightly, made sure the call button was within reach even though he was unconscious. Old habits, necessary habits, the kind that had kept people alive for 37 years. Then she followed Holden into a smaller room at the back of the warehouse. The three other SEALs were waiting. Wade Sutton Garrett Lynch and Deacon Rivers, all of them standing at parade rest, all of them watching her with an intensity that made her skin prickle with something between respect and anticipation. On a metal table in the center of the room sat a wooden box, small, maybe the size of a shoebox. The wood was dark with age and handling. Carved into the lid in careful block letters was a name, Catherine Morrison. Kit's breath caught in her throat. Holden stepped forward, placed his hand on the box like it was something sacred. Nate Hartwell made this in his woodshop class in high school. He was good with his hands, good at making things that lasted. He paused. He started filling it the day he met you, and he kept filling it until 3 days before he died. Kit moved closer. Her hand trembled as she reached for the lid. "Ma'am," Holden said softly, "what's in this box? Nate never sent it to you because he thought you'd try to stop him from re-enlisting. He thought you'd feel responsible. So he left it with me. Made me promise I'd find you when you retired and give it to you then, when you'd have time to read it, time to understand what it meant." Kit opened the box. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all handwritten on plain white paper, all folded carefully, all addressed to her in neat block printing. She picked up the first one. The date in the corner read July 15th, 2011. Her hands shook as she unfolded it. "Dear Kit, I don't know if I'll ever send these letters. Probably not. You just tell me to stop being dramatic. But I need to write them anyway. Need to put words to what you did for me. Today was the first day I didn't think about killing myself. I've been here 3 weeks. 3 weeks of doctors and medication and people telling me it gets better. None of it helped. I still woke up screaming. Still saw Danny's face every time I closed my eyes. Still felt like the world would be better off without me in it. Then you sat down in my room last night. You didn't try to fix me. Didn't give me platitudes about time healing all wounds. You just sat there in the dark and told me about your daughter learning to drive, about how scared you were letting her behind the wheel, about how sometimes the bravest thing we do is let go and trust. You sang to me, Amazing Grace. Your voice isn't great, no offense, but it helped. For the first time in 3 months, I fell asleep without nightmares. Today I woke up and thought, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can survive this. That's because of you. Thank you." Nate Kit's vision blurred. She set the letter down carefully, picked up the next one. August 3rd, 2011. "Dear Kit, 73 nights. That's how many times you've sat with me now. The other nurses think you're crazy. I heard them talking yesterday. They said you're spending your breaks in my room instead of resting. That you're going to burn out. But I don't think you're crazy. I think you understand something they don't. That sometimes the medicine people need isn't in a bottle, it's in presence. In someone choosing to stay when they could leave. You told me tonight about your husband, about Patrick, how he was a Marine too, how he came back from Iraq different, how you learned to love the person he became, not just the person he was. That gave me hope. That maybe I don't have to be the same Nate who left for Afghanistan. Maybe I can be someone new, someone who carries the scars but isn't defined by them. You're teaching me that, not with words, with actions. Thank you." Nate Kit's hands move faster now. Letter after letter, weeks turning to months. Nate's handwriting growing steadier, his words growing stronger. She could see his healing in the progression of ink on paper. November 22nd, 2011. "Dear Kit, I'm going home tomorrow. The doctors say I'm ready. My dad is coming to pick me up. I'm terrified. Not of the nightmares. Those are better now, not perfect, but better. I'm terrified of forgetting what you taught me, of losing the strength I've built here. But then I remember something you said last week. You said courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it. So I'm going home and I'm going to act despite the fear, because you showed me how. Thank you." Nate Kit set that letter down, picked up the next one. The date made her freeze. February 8th, 2012, 3 weeks before Nate died. "Dear Kit, I re-enlisted today. I know what you'd say if I told you. You'd ask me if I'm sure, if I've thought it through, if I'm running towards something or away from something. The truth, both. I'm running toward purpose, toward the brothers I left behind, toward unfinished business. And I'm running away from the person I was becoming at home. Comfortable, safe, empty. You taught me that surviving isn't the same as living, that breathing isn't the same as being alive. I'm going back because you taught me life is worth fighting for. Not just mine, everyone's. If I don't come back, I need you to know this isn't your fault. This is my choice, my calling. You gave me the tools. I'm choosing how to use them. Thank you, Nate. The letters blurred together now. Kit's tears fell onto the paper-smudging ink that was 12 years old. She couldn't stop reading, couldn't stop seeing Nate's words, his growth, his determination to become something more than his trauma. March 1st, 2012. Dear Kit, we deployed today, Afghanistan. Same place that broke me before. But I'm not broken anymore. I told my squad leader about you. Told him about the nurse who sat with me for 73 nights. Who sang me to sleep. Who taught me that fear is just information, not instruction. He asked me what I learned from you. I said I learned that the strongest thing a person can do is stay. Not run, not fight, just stay. Be present. Witness someone else's pain and not turn away. That's what I'm going to do out here. Stay. Be present. Witness. If I die doing that, I die doing something that matters. Thank you. Nate, March 11th, 2012. The last letter. 3 days before he died. Kit's hands shook so hard she could barely hold the paper. Dear Kit, tomorrow we're going on a mission. High risk. Our intel says there's a group of Taliban holding 8 Marines hostage in a compound near Helmand province. Command wants to send in drones, airstrike. Minimal risk to our forces. But those 8 Marines will die if we do that. I volunteered to go in on foot. Small team, extraction mission. Holden tried to talk me out of it. Said I don't have to prove anything. Said I've already done my part, but this isn't about proving anything. It's about doing what you taught me to do. Stay. Be present. Don't turn away. 8 Marines need someone to stay, to not give up on them, to believe they're worth the risk. You taught me that everyone is worth the risk. If I don't make it back, I need you to know something. Something I've never told you because I was afraid it would sound stupid. You saved my life, Kit. Not in the hospital. Every single day after. You gave me 4 years of living with purpose instead of 80 years of existing in fear. That's a gift, the greatest gift anyone ever gave me. Don't feel guilty. Don't blame yourself. Don't carry this. I made my choice. I chose to live bravely because you showed me how. Thank you. For everything, love, Nate. Kit folded the letter with shaking hands. Set it down carefully with all the others. 52 weeks, 52 letters, a year of Nate's life documented in words he never sent. She sat there in silence. The 4 SEALs watched her, waiting, patient, understanding that grief has no timeline and healing has no schedule. Holden cleared his throat. Ma'am, there's one more thing. Something Nate left for you, not a letter, something else. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, held it toward Kit. Nate recorded this 3 days before the mission, the same day he wrote that last letter. He gave it to me on a flash drive, made me promise I'd play it for you, but only after you'd read the letters. He said you'd need context first. Kit's hands trembled as she took the phone. Holden pressed play. Static, then a voice. Young, uncertain, unmistakably Nate. Kit, if you're hearing this, I didn't make it back, and Holden kept his promise. A pause. Background noise, voices, equipment, the ambient sound of a forward operating a base preparing for war. I've been trying to record this for 3 days, kept starting over, deleting it, but I'm running out of time, so here it is. You saved my life, everyone knows that part, but what they don't know is how many times, not just in the hospital, every single day after. There were mornings I woke up and thought, why bother? What's the point? The nightmares, the guilt, the feeling that I'm broken beyond repair. Why keep fighting? And then I'd remember something you said, or something you did, the way you sat with me on night 47 when I was convinced I was going crazy. You didn't tell me I wasn't. You just said crazy is okay. Crazy means you're human. Crazy means you felt something so deeply it broke you. That's not weakness, Nate. That's proof you loved your friend. His voice cracked. You gave me permission to be broken. And somehow that's what let me heal. Tomorrow I'm going on a mission. High risk, probably won't end well, but I volunteered because you taught me something I didn't know before. You taught me that life isn't about avoiding pain. It's about choosing what pain means. I can let Danny's death mean I'm a coward who survived when he shouldn't have. Or I can let it mean I have a responsibility to live bravely enough for both of us. I'm choosing the second one because of you. A long pause. Kit could hear him breathing, Could almost see him sitting in some dusty tent holding a phone trying to find the right words for something too big for language. If I die tomorrow, I want you to know this isn't your fault. This is your gift. You didn't make me reckless. You made me purposeful. There's a difference. And Kit, one more thing. The thing I could never say to your face because it felt too big, too vulnerable. I love you, not like a patient loves a nurse, like a son loves a mother. You're the person who taught me what unconditional presence feels like, what it means to be seen, to be valued, to matter. Thank you for that. Thank you for all of it. And please, please don't let my father blame you. He will. I know he will. He'll need someone to be angry at, and you're the easiest target. But don't carry his anger. Don't let it become yours. You did everything right. Everything. Okay, I think that's all. Holden's waiting. We deploy in 6 hours. A rustling sound, then quieter Nate's voice singing Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. He sang just the first verse. His voice was rough, untrained, but earnest. The same hymn Kit had sung to him 73 times in the darkness. Was blind, but now I see. The recording ended. Kit sat in absolute silence, the phone still in her hands, tears streaming down her face. Holden spoke softly. He sang that to himself every night before a mission. Said it reminded him he wasn't alone. Kit couldn't speak, couldn't move. The weight of Nate's voice alive, hopeful, grateful, pressed against her chest like something physical and immovable. Ma'am, Holden said, I need you to understand something. Nate knew. He knew the mission was likely one way, and he went anyway. Not because he was suicidal, not because he had a death wish, because he was finally truly alive. Kit looked up. Her face was soaked, but her eyes were clear. The mission, she managed. The 8 Marines. Tell me what happened. Holden's expression hardened into something between grief and pride. He saved them, Holden said quietly. All 8. Nate went in first, drew enemy fire, created a corridor for us to extract the hostages. We got them out, all 8 of them alive. And Nate, Holden's jaw tightened. He took 7 rounds covering our retreat. He knew what he was doing, knew it was a suicide run. He did it anyway. Because I taught him to stay, Kit whispered. No, ma'am. Holden's voice was firm, hard. Because you taught him that some things are worth dying for. That saving lives matters more than saving yourself. That courage is choosing the hard right over the easy wrong. He stepped closer, looked Kit directly in the eyes. Those 8 Marines, one of them was me. Nate Hartwell died saving my life. And every day since I've tried to live in a way that honors that sacrifice. In a way that makes his death mean something. Kit's legs gave out. She sat down hard on a folding chair, put her face in her hands. The weight of 12 years crashed down at once. The guilt she'd carried. The question marks. The wondering if she'd done the right thing or sent a boy to his death with her kindness. And now this. 52 letters and a recording saying she had. Ma'am, Garrett Lynch spoke for the first time. His voice was rough, southern accent, thick with emotion. Can I tell you something? Kit looked up, nodded. I was one of those 8 Marines. I was 22 years old. Had a wife and a baby daughter back home in Georgia. The Taliban were going to execute us at dawn. We were in that compound for 6 days. No food, little water. We'd given up hope. He paused, swallowed hard. Then Nate Hartwell kicked down the door. He was bleeding from 2 gunshot wounds already. Should have been dead, but he just kept moving, kept fighting. Got us out. Garrett's eyes were wet now. Before he died, he said something to me. He said, tell Kit Morrison she was right. Some things are worth it. Kit pressed her hands to her mouth, trying to hold back the sob building in her chest like a wave. Wade Sutton stepped forward, the big SEAL with the Texas drawl. Ma'am, I was there too. And I need you to know Nate didn't die in a fear. He died doing exactly what he wanted to do, what you taught him to want to do. He died with purpose. Deacon Rivers, the youngest of the 4, spoke last. Ma'am, I wasn't there that day. I met Holden 2 years later. But when he told me about Nate, told me about you, I knew I had to be here tonight. Because people like you, people who stay when it's hard, who care when it's costly, you're the reason people like us can do what we do. You're the foundation we stand on. Kit couldn't hold it anymore. The sob broke free. Then another, 12 years of grief and guilt and questions pouring out in a warehouse in Quincy at 4 in the morning. Holden knelt beside her chair, put a hand on her shoulder. Not intrusive, just present. Ma'am, Silas Hartwell wrote you that letter because he was angry, because he needed someone to blame for something that had no blame. But he was wrong. You didn't take Nate from him. You gave Nate back to himself. And Nate chose to use that gift to save lives. Kit looked at him through tears. Does Silas know about the letters, about what Nate did? Holden's face went dark. No, ma'am. Silas disappeared in 2015, dropped off the grid completely. We tried to find him to give him Nate's personal effects, but he was gone. Some people said he moved west. Others said he died. We don't know. Kit wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, took a shaking breath. He blamed me. All these years he's been out there blaming me. He was a father who lost his son, Holden said gently. Grief makes people cruel sometimes. It doesn't make them right. Kit stood up on unsteady legs, walked back to the table, looked down at the 52 letters spread across the metal surface. 12 years of a dead Marine's thoughts. 12 years of proof that she'd done something right, something that mattered. Can I keep these? She asked. They're yours, ma'am. They were always meant to be yours. Kit gathered the letters carefully, put them back in the wooden box with her name carved on the lid, closed it, held it against her chest like something precious and irreplaceable. Because it was. Thank you, she whispered, for finding me, for keeping Nate's promise, for all of this. Ma'am, Holden said, we're not done yet. Kit looked at him, confused. Lucas, Holden said, we still need your help protecting him. The people who want him dead, they're not going to stop. They're going to keep coming, and we need someone Lucas trusts to keep him calm and stable while we figure out who leaked his location and how deep this goes. Kit thought of the boy in the other room, 21 years old, scared, alone, wounded, just like Nate had been. She thought of Patrick asking her what she'd do when she retired. She thought of Nate's letters. She thought of the 52 weeks he'd spent living bravely because she'd shown him it was possible. Yes, Kit said, I'll help, but I have one condition. Name it. We don't just protect him. We finish this. We find who's after him. We find who betrayed him. And we make sure they can't hurt anyone else, ever. Holden smiled. It was a warrior's smile, grateful and fierce and ready. Yes, ma'am, that's exactly what we're going to do. Kit set the wooden box down carefully on the table, rolled up her sleeves, looked at these 4 Navy SEALs who'd carried a dead Marine's promise for 12 years. Then let's get to work. The attack came at 2:17 in the morning. Kit was sitting beside Lucas's bed reading one of Nate's letters by the light of a small lamp. Lucas had woken twice in the past hour, once from pain, once from a nightmare where faceless men with knives chased him through endless corridors. Both times Kit had been there, a hand on his shoulder, a quiet voice saying, you're safe, you're okay, I'm here. The simplest medicine there was. She heard it before the alarms went off, a sound that didn't belong. Metal scraping concrete, too deliberate, too careful. The sound of professionals trying to be quiet. Kit's body went still, every sense sharpened. Training from 45 years ago flooding back like it had never left. She reached over and pressed the call button 3 times. The signal they'd agreed on, danger. Holden appeared in the doorway 5 seconds later, pistol drawn, eyes scanning the room with tactical precision. How many, he whispered. Don't know, Kit said quietly. East side, maybe 2 minutes out. He spoke into his radio, clicks and static, then Wade's voice barely audible. Motion sensors triggered, 4 contacts, armed, professional movement patterns. 4 armed men, coming for a wounded 21-year-old college student who'd made the mistake of being honest. Holden looked at Kit. We need to move him. Now. He can't walk, Kit said, already pulling the IV from Lucas's arm with practiced efficiency. Not far. Those wounds will tear open if we're not careful. Then we carry him. Lucas was awake now, eyes wide with terror, pupils dilated. They found me. Oh God, they found me again. Kit took his face in both hands, forced him to look at her instead of the shadows. Lucas, listen to me. We're going to move you. It's going to hurt. But you're going to be okay. Do you understand? I can't. You can and you will, because that's what we do when we're scared. We move anyway. Kit grabbed a blanket from the foot of the bed. Holden, we need something to carry him in. No time for a stretcher. Garrett appeared with another blanket, already moving with purpose. We carry him between us. Move fast. Stay low. The sound of breaking glass. East window. They were inside the building. Holden's voice was pure command, now the voice of a man who'd led warriors into battle. Deacon North exit. Clear the path. Wade rear guard. Garrett, you've got the patient with me. Kit, you stay with Lucas. If he starts bleeding, you stop it. We don't leave anyone behind. They moved like a well-oiled machine. Garrett and Wade lifted Lucas in the blanket, carrying him between them like a hammock. Kit ran alongside, one hand on Lucas's chest, feeling for the wounds through the bandages, ready to apply pressure if they tore open. Holden led the way, weapon up, at checking corners with the systematic precision of someone who'd cleared 1,000 rooms. The warehouse was a maze of old offices and storage rooms. Holden navigated it like he'd memorized every wall, every door, every possible ambush point in the 2 hours they'd been here. Because he had, behind them, footsteps, running now. No more stealth. They'd been spotted. A voice shouted in the darkness, "East corridor, they're moving east. Cut them off." Gunfire erupted. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Concrete chips exploded from the wall beside Kit's head. She didn't flinch, didn't slow down, just kept her hand on Lucas's chest, monitoring his breathing, and kept moving forward. Wade returned fire. 3 shots. Precise, controlled, professional. A scream, 1 attacker down. They burst through a door into a stairwell. Down, always down. Holden had planned for this. The exit was in the basement, an old loading dock that opened onto an alley where their vehicles waited. Lucas was crying now, not from fear, from pain. The movement was tearing his wounds. Kit could feel blood seeping through the bandages under her palm. Warm, wet, too much. "Stop," Kit said firmly. "We need to stop. He's bleeding." "No time," Holden said, not breaking stride. "Now, or he bleeds out in 3 minutes and this was all for nothing." Holden cursed under his breath, held up a fist. Everyone stopped instantly. They were in the stairwell between floors. Exposed, vulnerable. But Lucas came first. Always the mission came first. Kit ripped open Lucas's hospital gown. The subclavian wound had torn open. Blood pulsed with each heartbeat, dark and fast. She pressed her palm against it. Hard, harder than Lucas could stand. He screamed, the sound echoing in the concrete stairwell. "I know," Kit said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I know it hurts, but I've got you. Just breathe." She reached into the medical bag Garrett carried on his belt, found what she needed without looking. Hemostatic gauze, the kind they used in combat when there was no time for proper surgery. She packed it into the wound with quick, efficient movements. Applied pressure, counted to 30 in her head. Above them, footsteps on metal stairs, coming fast, getting closer. "Kit," Holden said quietly. A warning, a question. How much longer? 10 more seconds. She could see the attackers now. 2 men rounding the landing above them. Black tactical gear, professional weapons. Moving with the confidence of people who'd done this before and expected to do it again. The first one raised his rifle. Holden shot him twice. Center mass. The man fell backward with a wet sound that Kit had heard too many times in her career. The second attacker got a shot off. The bullet sparked off the metal railing inches from Kit's head, so close she felt the heat of it pass. She didn't move, didn't stop counting. Lucas's life was measured in seconds now, and she wouldn't waste a single one on fear. Wade dropped the second attacker with a single headshot that would have been impressive if it wasn't so terrible. "Done," Kit said, pressing a final piece of tape over the gauze. "Move." They ran, down the last flight of stairs, through the basement that smelled of rust and old machinery, past forgotten storage and abandoned dreams. The loading dock was ahead. Deacon had the door open. A van waited in the alley, engine running, exhaust visible in the cold February air. They loaded Lucas inside. Kit climbed in after him, immediately resuming pressure on his wound. Garrett took the wheel. Holden claimed the passenger seat. Wade and Deacon followed in the second vehicle, providing rear security. The van rocketed through the alley. No lights, no pretense of caution. Speed was safety now. Distance was survival. Lucas was going into shock. Kit could see all the signs: pale skin going gray, rapid shallow breathing, dilated pupils, confusion. She elevated his legs with a duffel bag, kept pressure on the wound with one hand while checking his pulse with the other. Thready but present, fast but not impossibly so. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Backup location." Holden said, his voice tight with controlled tension. "Wade's uncle's place in Dorchester. No one knows about it, no records, no paper trail. The uncle's in Florida for the winter." "How far?" 15 minutes if traffic stays clear." Kit looked down at Lucas. His eyes were closing. Not good. "Stay with me," she said firmly. "Lucas, look at me. Stay awake." "Tired," he mumbled. "So tired." "I know, but you don't get to sleep yet. We had a deal, remember you stay alive? I keep you that way. Can't do my part if you don't do yours. She adjusted her pressure on the wound. Talk to me. Tell me about school. What's your favorite class? Advanced algorithms. His voice was weak but present. Professor Riley, she's really good. What do you want to do after graduation? Don't know, maybe cybersecurity? Help catch bad guys. A weak laugh. Ironic, right? Not ironic. Perfect. We need people like you. People who notice when things don't add up. People who have the guts to do something about it. Kit checked the wound again. Still bleeding, but slower now. The hemostatic gauze was working. You did the right thing, Lucas. Going to the FBI. A lot of people wouldn't have had that courage. Got me stabbed. Got me hunted. Got you targeted by cowards. There's a difference. They're afraid of the truth. You're not. That makes you stronger than all of them combined. Lucas's eyes focused on her face, really seeing her for the first time since they'd started running. You really believe that? I know that? I've seen enough cowards and enough brave people to know the difference. The van turned sharply. Kit braced Lucas so he wouldn't slide. They were on residential streets now. Trees and houses instead of warehouses and industrial decay. Almost there. Almost there, Holden said, echoing her thoughts. 2 more minutes. Kit's phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it. Then it buzzed again and again. Someone calling repeatedly. Insistent. She checked the screen with her free hand. Unknown number. Don't answer that, Holden said sharply. But Kit's instincts screamed otherwise. 45 years of listening to those instincts had kept people alive. She answered. Put it on speaker. Catherine Morrison. The voice was male, older, rough from years of cigarettes or whiskey or both. Textured with something that might have been pain once but had hardened into anger. You don't know me, but I know you. Kit's blood went cold. Every nerve ending fired a warning. Who is this? Someone who's been looking for you for a long time. Someone who wants to talk about my son. About what you did to him. The world tilted. Kit's hand tightened on Lucas's wound, but her voice stayed steady. Silas. Holden's head snapped around, stared at her with an expression between shock and understanding. That's right, Silas Hartwell said. Silas Hartwell, father of Nathaniel Hartwell, the boy you killed with your kindness. Kit's hand shook, but she forced it still. I didn't kill him, Silas. You made him brave, made him think he was a hero, made him believe life was worth living, worth fighting for. Then you sent him back to war to die for those beliefs. Silas's voice was pure venom, decades of grief compressed into weapon-grade bitterness. 12 years I've lived with that. 12 years of knowing my son died because some nurse played God and decided he was strong enough to go back. Mr. Hartwell, I never told Nate to, You're protecting someone tonight, Silas interrupted. A witness, Lucas Brennan. My employer wants him dead before he testifies, and I've volunteered for the job. Not because of the money, because of you. Kit's throat closed. You're working for them. The people who tried to kill Lucas. I'm working for people who pay well and don't ask questions about my past. Been doing it for 8 years now. Security contracting, wet work, whatever needs doing. Silas laughed, and it was the most bitter, broken sound Kit had ever heard. Turns out I'm good at it, killing people, making problems disappear. Maybe it runs in the family. Maybe Nate learned it from me before you got your hooks in him. Holden reached for the phone. Kit pulled it away, her eyes locked on the speaker as if she could see through it to the broken man on the other end. Silas, she said, and her voice carried all the authority of 37 years keeping people alive. Nate left me letters, 52 of them. Did you know that silence on the other end, heavy, waiting? He wrote me every week for a year after he left the hospital. Told me about his life, his thoughts, his choices. The last letter was 3 days before he died. Do you want to know what he said? I don't, Silas's voice cracked. He said I gave him 4 years of living with purpose instead of 80 years of existing in fear. He thanked me for teaching him that some things are worth dying for, that saving lives matters more than saving yourself, that courage means choosing the hard right over the easy wrong. Auntie Kit's voice broke now, but she pushed through because this mattered more than pride, more than composure. Your son died a hero, Silas. He saved 8 Marines, 8 men who went home to their families because Nate chose to be brave. He didn't die because I made him go back. He died because he chose to, because he understood something you've forgotten in your grief and your anger. What's that? Silas's voice was quieter now, uncertain, the venom draining out. That life isn't measured in years. It's measured in meaning. Nate lived 21 years that mattered more than most people's entire lifetimes. How many years have you lived that didn't matter? How many years have you wasted being angry at the wrong person? The line went dead. The van pulled into a driveway. Small house, suburban neighborhood, lights off. Normal on the outside, sanctuary on the inside. They carried Lucas inside, set him up in the master bedroom. Kit cleaned and redressed his wounds properly now, with time and light and proper supplies. The bleeding had stopped. His vitals were stabilizing, color returning to his face. He'd be okay. For now. She found Holden in the kitchen an hour later. He was cleaning his weapon with the methodical precision of ritual, each movement practiced 10,000 times. That was risky, he said without looking up. Talking to Silas like that. He needed to hear it. He's coming for us. You know that. He knows where we are now, or he will soon. He's got resources, connections. He'll find us. Kit dried her hands on a dish towel, looked at Holden directly. I know, but maybe there's a chance he'll listen, that he'll remember who Nate was instead of just mourning who he lost, that he'll read those letters and understand. And if he doesn't, then we deal with it. Kit's voice was hard now, determined, the voice of someone who'd decided something and wouldn't be moved. But I'm not going to let him kill Lucas, or hurt anyone else. Nate wouldn't want that, and I won't dishonor Nate's memory by letting his father become a murderer. Holden studied her face. You've changed since we met you in that parking lot. Something's different. Kit thought about the wooden box upstairs carefully placed on the dresser in the room where she'd sleep for a few hours. The 52 letters. The 12 years she'd spent believing she'd failed Nate. The revelation that she hadn't, that she'd given him exactly what he needed. I remembered who I am, she said simply. I'm not just a retired nurse. I'm someone who stays, someone who doesn't give up, someone who taught a broken Marine how to be whole again. And I'm not done yet. Her phone rang, same unknown number. Kit answered without hesitation. Silas. I broke into your car. His voice was different now, shaking, raw. While you were at the first safe house. Picked the lock. Took the box, the one with my son's letters. Kit's hand tightened on the phone. A violation, but also a long pause filled with breathing that sounded like it hurt. I read them, every single one. Sat in my car for 2 hours and read my son's words. Words he wrote to you, not to me. To you. Silas, I've been wrong. The words came out broken, shattered. For 12 years I've been wrong about everything. Yes, Kit said quietly, you have. He loved you. Did you know that in the letters, he called you his second mother, said you understood him better than I ever did, better than I ever tried to? Tears ran down Kit's face, but her voice stayed steady. He loved you too, Silas. He wrote about you, about wanting to make you proud, about hoping you'd understand why he went back. I wasn't proud. When he re-enlisted, I was furious. Told him he was being stupid, selfish. Said he was abandoning me, throwing away the second chance he'd been given. Silas's voice cracked completely now. The last conversation I had with my son, I called him selfish, called him ungrateful. Then he died, and I couldn't take it back. Couldn't tell him I was wrong. Couldn't tell him I was just scared of losing him. He knew you loved him, Kit said softly. Anger comes from love. Fear comes from love. He understood that. I've done terrible things, Catherine. Since he died, I've hurt people, killed people, became the kind of man Nate would be ashamed to call his father. Then stop, right now, this moment. Stop being that man. It's not that simple. The people I work for, they'll kill me if I back out. Kill me and then kill Lucas anyway. And they'll still succeed. They've got 12 more contractors on standby. 12 men who will do whatever it takes. Kit's heart sank. Well, 12. Lucas's testimony puts away 19 people. Combined, they're worth $500 million. They'll spend whatever it takes to silence him. I'm just one piece. If I fail, they'll send the others. Holden had been listening. He leaned close to the phone. Silas, this is Commander Holden Brennan. I was one of the Marines your son saved. Do you remember me from the letters? Silence. Then the letters. He mentioned you, said you were his team leader, said you were like a brother. That's right, and I made Nate a promise before he died. I promised I'd look after the people he cared about. That includes you, Silas, whether you believe it or not. I don't need Yes, you do. You need a way out of the hole you've dug, and I can give you one. But you have to help us first. You have to choose. Choose what? Choose whether you want to be the man who kills in Nate's name or the man who saves people in his memory. Choose whether his death broke you permanently or whether it can still mean something. Choose whether you honor him by becoming like him or dishonor him by becoming what he fought against. The silence stretched for 45 seconds. Kit could hear Silas breathing, ragged, uncertain, standing at a crossroads 12 years in the making. What do you need? Silas finally said. Holden's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened. Tell us everything. Who hired you? Where they are? How they're coordinating? The whole network. Give us the information and I'll get you into federal protection. New identity, new life. A chance to become the man Nate believed you were before grief broke you. More silence. Kit could almost see Silas weighing his options. Prison or death or redemption. All three terrifying in different ways. Okay, Silas said. Okay, I'll help. But Catherine, yes. I'm sorry for the letter I sent you, for blaming you, for wasting 12 years being angry at the wrong person, for everything I've done since Nate died. Kit closed her eyes, felt the weight of 12 years lifting. Not completely, never completely, but enough. I forgive you, Silas. Now help us finish this. Help us save Lucas. Help us make sure Nate's sacrifice meant something. I will, I promise. The next 6 hours were controlled chaos. Silas provided names, locations, meeting times, communication protocols. The entire organizational structure of the criminal network that wanted Lucas dead. He'd been on the inside for 3 years. Knew everything, every weakness, every connection. Holden contacted the FBI. Not just any agent, his former commanding officer who'd retired to the Bureau. Someone he trusted absolutely. Someone who couldn't be bought because he'd already turned down fortunes trying. The FBI moved with military precision, coordinated raids across 5 states, arrested 11 of the 19 targets before dawn broke over the Atlantic. The other 8 fled, but their assets were frozen within hours, their network destroyed, their power shattered. Lucas would still testify, still help put them away permanently, but the immediate threat was neutralized. The hunters had become the hunted, and Silas Hartwell disappeared into witness protection. But before he became someone new in some distant city, he asked to speak to Kit one final time. The video call connected at 6:47 a.m. Silas looked older than Kit expected. 70, maybe 72. Gray hair cut military short, weathered face mapped with lines of grief and regret. Eyes that had seen too much and understood too late. I want you to have something, he said. Nate's medals, his dress blues, the flag from his funeral. They're in a storage unit in Worcester. I'll send you the address and the key code. Silas, those should stay with you. No, firm, decided. I don't deserve them, not after what I've done, not after what I've become. But you do. You earn them by giving Nate a reason to earn them. He paused, gathering courage. Will you take them? Will you keep them safe? Kit thought of the wooden box, the 52 letters, the pieces of Nate's life that she'd been given to hold, to honor, to remember. Yes, she said, I'll take them, and I'll keep them safe, I promise. Thank you. Silas wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. One more thing. The letters. The box. Can I see them again? Before I go. Before I become someone else. Kit looked at Holden. He nodded slowly. I'll make copies, Kit said. Send them to your handler, digital and physical. So you'll always have them, so you can remember who Nate was, who you can still be. Silas broke down completely then. Sobbed like a child, like a man who'd been holding it together for 12 years and finally had permission to fall apart. He was a good boy, Silas managed between sobs. A good man. I wish I'd told him that more. Wish I'd been proud of him instead of scared for him. Wish I'd been the father he deserved. He knew Silas. In his own way he knew, and he forgave you long before you forgave yourself. The call ended. Kit sat in the quiet kitchen of a stranger's house in Dorchester, watching the sun rise over a city that had no idea how close it had come to more violence. How much had been prevented by letters and choices and people deciding to be better than their worst moments. Holden brought her coffee, black the way she'd mentioned she liked it hours ago. He remembered details. Good officers always did. You did good tonight, he said. Saved 2 lives, Lucas and Silas. Nate saved them. Ina, Kit corrected. I just delivered the message. Same thing. Kit sipped her coffee. Bitter and hot and perfect. What happens now? Now FBI processes the arrests. Lucas gets relocated until trial. You, Holden paused. You get to choose. You can walk away. Go home. This is over for you. Kit thought about her empty house, her empty calendar, her empty retirement that had seemed so terrifying 12 hours ago. Or, she asked, or you help us build something, a program, support for veterans dealing with PTSD trauma transition issues. Someone with your experience, your approach, we need that. The VA needs that. Hell, the whole country needs that. Mom, Kit looked out the window, watched the sun climb higher. A new day, a new chance, a new choice. Let me think about it, she said, but she already knew her answer. 8 weeks later, on a brilliant morning in April, Kit stood in Arlington National Cemetery. Section 60, row after row of white headstones marking graves of men and women who died in Iraq and Afghanistan. Young lives ended, old griefs beginning. Nate's grave was simple, just his name, his rank, his dates. 21 years compressed into two numbers that couldn't possibly contain everything he'd been. But today the grave wasn't empty. 80 people stood in a semicircle around it. Marines and SEALs and the 8 men Nate had saved, now in their 30s and 40s, some with gray hair and children of their own. All of them here to honor a boy who'd chosen to stay when he could have run. Holden stood at the front in his dress whites. Kit beside him in a simple black dress. In her hands she held the wooden box, always with her now, her constant reminder. We gather here, Holden said, his voice carrying across the quiet cemetery, to honor Corporal Nathaniel Hartwell. Not just for how he died, but for how he lived. For the choice he made to be brave, to be kind, to be present when presence was costly. He turned to Kit. Today we have the honor of presenting the first annual Nathaniel Hartwell Service Medal. This medal will be given each year to a medical professional, military or civilian, who embodies the values Nate learned from Catherine Morrison. The values of staying when others leave, of caring when it's costly, of choosing service over safety. Holden opened a small case. Inside was a medal, bronze, shaped like a pair of hands holding a heart. Simple, beautiful, meaningful. Catherine Morrison, Holden said formally. On behalf of the United States Navy, the Marine Corps, and the 8 men whose lives Nate Hartwell saved, we present you with this medal. Not only for what you did for Nate, but for what you did for the thousands of patients you served in 37 years. For the lives you saved, the hands you held, the hope you gave when hope seemed impossible. He pinned the medal to Kit's dress, then he stepped back and saluted. 80 people saluted. Marines and SEALs and civilians who'd served their country in different ways, all of them honoring a 65-year-old retired nurse who'd spent her career being invisible. Kit's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away, didn't hide. She stood straight and let herself be seen, let herself be honored, let herself believe finally that she'd done enough. After the ceremony, people lined up to thank her, to shake her hand, to tell her their stories, each one a ripple from a single act of kindness 12 years ago. The Marine whose life Nate had saved in Helmand Province, who'd named his daughter Catherine. The Navy corpsman who'd read Nate's letters and decided to become a nurse. The mother whose son came home from Iraq with PTSD, who found help because Nate's story gave her hope that healing was possible. Ripples, all of them ripples spreading outward from 73 nights of sitting in darkness and choosing to stay. Lucas was there too, healed now, walking without a limp. The trial had ended 3 weeks ago. 19 convictions. Justice served in a courtroom instead of an alley. I start my new job Monday, he told Kit. FBI Cybersecurity Division. They recruited me after the trial, said they need people who understand how to find patterns in chaos. Kit smiled. That's perfect. You'll do important work there. Because of you, you kept me alive long enough to matter. You kept yourself alive, Lucas. I just helped. There's a difference. He hugged her, tight, the kind of hug that says thank you and goodbye, and I'll never forget you all at once. When most people had left, Kit stood alone at Nate's grave. The sun was setting, golden light across white marble, beautiful and terrible and necessary. She opened the wooden box, took out the last letter. Read it one more time, though she'd memorized every word. You gave me 4 years of living with purpose instead of 80 years of existing in fear. Kit folded the letter carefully, put it back, set the box on top of the headstone. I understand now, she said quietly to the stone, to the memory, to the ghost of a boy who'd changed her life by letting her change his. What you were trying to tell me. It's not about how long we live. It's about what we do with the time we have. You lived 21 years that mattered more than most people's 80. Thank you for teaching me that. The wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere a bird sang. The world continued turning. Kit reached into her purse, pulled out a photograph that had arrived last week, from Silas through his federal handler. The photo showed a young Nate, maybe 8 years old, standing beside his father at a baseball game. Both of them smiling, both of them whole, before war, before loss, before everything that came after. On the back, Silas had written in shaky handwriting, "Thank you for giving me my son back." Not in body, but in understanding. I know who he was now, and I'm trying to become worthy of his memory. Kit propped the photo against the headstone. Father and son together again, at least in image and memory, and the hope that understanding could bridge even the deepest grief. She stood, brushed grass from her dress, looked one last time at the grave of the boy who'd taught her that service never ends, it just changes form. "I have to go now," she said to Nate, "but I'll come back, every year, I promise, and I'll keep doing the work, keep staying when others leave, keep being present, the way you taught me." She walked toward the parking lot where Holden waited. Beside him stood Wade, Garrett, and Deacon. The three SEALs had come to say their own goodbyes before deploying again. Wade spoke first. "Ma'am, before we go, we wanted to thank you for everything. Nate told us about you for years. Now we understand why." Garrett nodded. "You kept your head during the firefight, stayed focused on the mission. That's operator-level composure. Nate was right about you." Deacon, the youngest, stepped forward. "Ma'am, I wasn't at Helmand Province, but Holden told me what happened. And I need to say people like you are the reason people like us can keep going. You're the foundation, the bedrock. Thank you." Kit looked at these three warriors, men who'd carried Nate's memory across battlefields she'd never see, men who'd honored a promise to a dead brother for 12 years. "Thank you," she said simply, "for keeping his promise, for finding me, for letting me know that what I did mattered." Wade came to attention. The other two followed. All three saluted one final time. Kit returned it. Not perfect, she'd been Navy corpsman, not an officer, but sincere and full of respect. "Until we meet again, ma'am," Wade said. "Until then," Kit replied, "stay safe out there." They left, warriors returning to whatever war waited next. Kit turned to Holden. "They're good men. The best. Nate chose his brothers well." They walked to the parking lot in comfortable silence. At her car, Kit paused. "I've made my decision," she said, "about your offer, the program." Holden waited. "Yes, I'll do it. I'll help you build it. But on one condition. Name it. We don't just help veterans. We train the next generation of caregivers. Nurses, corpsmen, paramedics. We teach them what I learned from Nate. That presence is medicine. That staying is strength. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is sit in darkness with someone and refuse to leave." Holden smiled, a real smile, warm and grateful. "Nate would approve." "I hope so." Kit drove home through the Boston streets, past the hospital where she'd worked for 37 years, past the neighborhoods where she'd lived and loved and lost, past the life she'd known into the life she was building. At home, she placed the wooden box on her mantel beside Patrick's photo, beside the folded flag from Nate's funeral that had arrived from the storage unit in Worcester, beside the medal she'd received that morning. Her phone rang, Abigail calling from Seattle. "Mom, I've been thinking, maybe I should move back to Boston, help with your program. What do you think?" Kit smiled. First real smile in days. "I think that would be perfect. When can you start?" 2 weeks. I already gave notice at work." Surprise. They talked for an hour about the program, about Nate, about how loss can become legacy if you're brave enough to let it. After hanging up, Kit sat in her living room, quiet, peaceful, full. Tomorrow she'd meet with the VA, start planning the program, the Catherine Morrison Veterans Crisis Support Initiative. 40 volunteers already signed up. Funding secured, hope building. But tonight she just sat, surrounded by memories and medals and the evidence that her life had meant something. She opened the wooden box one last time, read one letter, not the last one, the first one. "Today was the first day I didn't think about killing myself. That's because of you." Kit closed the box, set it carefully back on the mantel. "You're welcome, Nate," she whispered to the empty room. "And thank you for everything you taught me. Everything you gave me, everything you showed me about what it means to live bravely." Outside, the sun finished setting. Stars appeared. The world kept turning. Catherine Morrison. Kit to those who knew her, ma'am, to those who honored her, stood up, made tea, prepared for tomorrow. The work never ended, and she wouldn't have it any other way. Service wasn't what you did, it was who you were, and she would keep serving until her final watch ended. In the quiet of her living room, surrounded by ghosts who'd become guides, she sang softly. Just the first verse. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. Her voice wasn't good, never had been, but it was enough. It was always enough.